Hello and welcome to my channel, Polyglot Reading. My name is David, and today I would like to present a lesser-known novel by Marcel Proust, his early novel Jean Santeuil. And I'm doing this because I think this shorter, earlier novel could be an interesting starting point for those who have been put off by Marcel Proust and the reputation he has because of his major work, In Search of Lost Time. And In Search of Lost Time, this novel in 7 volumes is, of course, it's a real doorstopper. It's quite a giant among the 20th century novels. And I can understand that people are put off, are intimidated by the sheer size of this book, and of course also by its reputation for being somewhat difficult and complex and too long and tedious to read. So I think, yeah, it's normal that we hesitate a little when we don't know whether we can really get through 7 volumes or 3,500 pages of reading a single novel. And so we're not sure whether we can make it all the way up this huge mountain range. And yeah, for some people also not finishing a book feels a bit like a defeat, and who wants that? So but to stay within this mountain metaphor, if we classify or categorize In Search of Lost Time as a Mount Everest type of book, then I would say that with Jean Santeuil, we have something like a literary Mont Blanc before us. It offers the real high altitude mountaineering experience and these sweeping panoramic views, but it's much more manageable and easier for the average readers to tackle. However, in terms of the enjoyment factor, at least in my opinion, there's no compromise, no drawback whatsoever compared to Proust's magnum opus In Search of Lost Time. Admittedly, Jean Santeuil is not exactly a slim volume. It is still around 1,000 pages long, but that is, of course, significantly less than the main work with 3,000, I think, 500 pages. So, what is Jean Santeuil about, and why do I consider this a good introduction to Proust's work? So, I think these two questions can and should be answered together. It's basically, it is because Jean Santeuil has a similar plot and the same philosophical themes as In Search of Lost Time, and it is also written in almost the same style. So it's more or less really the little brother of In Search of Lost Time. It is a book about the childhood, the youth, and the early adulthood of a very sensitive and somewhat sickly boy, Jean Santeuil, who grows up in a sheltered in a sheltered upper class French home. It is about the small joys and small sorrows of his everyday life. And these are small joys and small sorrows, but being a hypersensitive person, he experiences all these events as events of existential significance or sometimes existential threat. So it is also about his first childhood love, about impressions of nature, of landscape, of his enthusiasm for specific landscape settings, about works of art, how the pieces of art leave a strong impression on him. May they be paintings or pieces of music, or even just the evening sun who is gold coating the treetops of the Parisian avenues and the trees with its reflections. And the novel talks also about a little bit about the gossip of Parisian high society, about the political intrigues, the Dreyfus affair, and also the melancholy of seeing how your parents are aging and how the grandparents' generation passes away. So, and all of this is very similar to the plot of In Search of Lost Time. But one has to be aware that when reading Proust, that ultimately all these plot elements they're not that important. They are merely the backdrop against which Proust unfolds his typically delicate and profound observations of both his own psyche and that of his fellow human beings. I think that one of Proust's great strengths is that he analyzes both external sensory impressions and inner worlds of thought with an almost surgical precision and a stunning attention to detail, revealing ever deeper layers of our thinking, of our feeling, and of our aesthetic perceptions. And by doing this, using the main character as just an example, he also invites the reader to apply the same level of attention, or what we would probably call mindfulness today, apply the same level of attention and mindfulness to our own heights and depths, and yeah, even the abysses of our own self, of our personality, of our thoughts, our emotions, and also our motives in dealing with the challenges of life, and also with our loved ones and the people around us. So if I were to summarize in just a few points what makes reading Proust so special and in my opinion unique, at least to me personally, it would be at least the three following points, which I believe are already fully developed in the smaller novel Jean Santeuil. It's first the discovery of slowness and the education of the reader to read slowly, carefully, and above all, enjoyably, really to lose oneself in the narrator's thoughts and observations. Proust's novels, they are not page turners, not at all. So as I mentioned, the plot is secondary. It's about the thoughts, the feelings, and the self-reflections triggered by the events of the plot. And Proust devotes himself to this in an almost excessive manner and in excessive depth. The analysis of a feeling of infatuation, for example, can go on for 10 or 20 pages with sentence structures that are as twisted as our own thoughts and feeling on this sort of matters. Proust is an author who constantly slows the reader down and forces us to pause and to reflect or to reread a sentence. I believe that once you have read Proust, from that point on, you read differently and you read more attentively, more enjoyably. You learn that it is not the whole point of reading good literature is not about having read something, but it's about the real pleasure and the real gain lies in focused reading. In the moment, you're totally immersed in reading and enjoying certain sentences and descriptions and analysis, in really immersing yourself in the text. The second point is, I think Proust is doing great in sharpening our eye, our vision for the aesthetic elements, the aesthetic um, dimension of the things that we experience. Proust is very good at describing in detail the sensory impressions and the thoughts that are triggered by when we observe pieces of art. He describes how landscapes and moods and the works of art leave an impression on us. He does this by revealing their complexity and tracing also the chains of associations that they can trigger in us. So if you have ever read Proust's descriptions of a landscape or of a painting or of a piece of music, and if you have ever allowed yourself to be drawn into this intense contemplation, really to immerse in it, you will, after that, you will see life differently through different eyes, and you will approach works of art of all kinds with a different, more attentive attitude. And so I believe that reading Proust can actually lead to a more intense experience of our life, of our sensory environment. And if one learns to engage in this mode of detailed and slow observation and reflection that Proust is trying to teach us. A third point, it's self-reflection and self-knowledge. Proust analyzes and dissects and reflects on all the psychological mechanisms of both, of the noblest feeling, such as love and enthusiasm and compassion and charity and anticipation, but also the dark sides, such as self-deception and egoism and hidden vanity and our inclinations to manipulate others, to exploit them. And he carries out this analysis with a unique depth. in the level of detail he's analyzing this. And I find it impressive how we increases our awareness that our thinking and our motivation for certain attitudes or actions are usually quite complex. And that even in supposedly noble motives, when we really take a very precise and honest look at it, and the self-analysis, we can perceive undercurrents and deeper layers that we were probably not aware of in the beginning, and we may not find that pleasant or that noble. So even in the noblest feeling or motivations, they are often a mixed bag, a complex mixture in which also some base motives can resonate. And I believe that Proust teaches us to take a clearer and also a more honest look at ourselves. So in summary, I think that I'm convinced that Proust's particular strength and appeal lie precisely in these 3 points, that he actually opens up a different perspective on reading and on reading literature, a different perspective on external sensory impressions, especially on landscape and art, and also a different perspective on our inner lives, our emotions and our motives. And to get to all that, to benefit from these Proustian thoughts, you don't have to read all 7 volumes of In Search of Lost Time. The 2 volumes of Jean Santeuil, they will do. They're enough. And maybe then you're hooked and then you will go for 7 volumes. But if you're looking for a smaller starting point, this is the ideal, really the ideal starting point. Now, I can't really evaluate the language of the French original. So unfortunately, my French is not good enough for that. But based, based on the German translation I read, I would say that Jean Santeuil, this is definitely not a work of youth. It's not a clumsy first attempt, not at all. This already is fully fledged, mature Marcel Proust. Narratively and stylistically, and especially in view of the 3 points I mentioned, it's really a mature literary work that I can recommend to anyone who has always wanted to read Marcel Proust but has been put off or deterred by the length and by the myth of inaccessibility of his main work. So unfortunately, the English translation by Gerard Hopkins, published in the Penguin Classic series, it seems to be out of print currently, but it's still available on the second-hand book market at very reasonable prices. So you can check the usual platforms for second-hand books or antiquarian books, and you will find uh, copies of that edition galore. So, okay, that's it for today. Please let me know in the comments if I've managed to pique your interest, your curiosity in this book, or if you are already familiar with the novel Jean Santeuil, if you have read it. So I look forward to hearing or reading from you. And okay, what remains to be said? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and hope to see you next time. Have a great reading time. Take care. Bye bye and ciao.